are coming off one of the biggest beatdowns in title history that we've ever seen. A lot of people had this as a 50-50 fight, but that is certainly not the way it looked in the ring on Saturday night. On Friday, I had Vince Parra, trainer in boxing, well known, well respected on the podcast, and he was breaking down the fight. And we're going to have him back on right now and talk to him about what he saw from a trainer's perspective on the fight, and then talk about the overall fight and the impact that this has not only on Spence's career, but of course Terrence's career as the new number one pound for pound in the world. After this performance, he had to have a performance like this in order to top Inoue's performance earlier in the week, and certainly he did, and certainly he is deserving of the number one spot in boxing, and the sky's the limit for him at 35 years old. He doesn't have a lot of time left, so I would imagine that he's going to move quickly to secure his legacy with some big fights coming up after a phenomenal performance. So let's jump right in. Let's talk to Vince and see what he has to say about Spence and Crawford after Saturday night.
We talked about it ahead of time, and yeah, it was a hell of a lot more one-sided than I think anybody had thought, minus a couple people. So, I just first your overall reaction to it.
Well, it was a great performance by Bud Crawford, and I wasn't surprised. I mean, I think we talked about it, and I think obviously there's questions after the first couple of rounds, but after the second round, you knew it was over, and it wasn't so much the knockdown, but it was when they first exchanged jabs, and you saw how he got there first, and that set the tone. Because again, like I said when we were talking about this, one thing you don't want to do with Bud Crawford is extend yourself, and that's how the first knockdown happened. Because I believe Errol felt that jab and felt the power in it and knew that he had the range, and that's why you reach like that. And when he got caught for that mistake, that's when Bud first exploited it, and after that, it was a one-sided.
Yeah, I thought it was
So I'm
interesting.
excited because it's kudos to Bud Crawford and his team. I mean, he's the man. You know what I mean? What a great fighter.
Yeah, I listened to an interview from Bomac, and he was talking about in between the first and second round. He said he's slower than you, so come over the top when he jabs. So he did the 2-1, and that's what knocked him down the first
Mhm.
time. And that little adjustment, that was it. Took over the fight,
Right.
and then from that
Right.
point
Well, we knew
on,
the key to the fight was going to be who had the better jab. And when you fight a guy like Bud Crawford, uh, you gotta be special. You know what I mean? And that the jab is it, and that's such a small margin. But when it happens, once Bud got the distance, it was only a matter of time.
yeah, yeah, 100%. It didn't take him long to figure him out. He seemed the big question for me, which was an unknown, is I'd never seen Spence do anything but what he normally does. And once Crawford took that away, I wanted to see if he would adjust because we all knew he was going to take it away because he was just faster, right? And then
Well,
the
we
fact,
we knew that too, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, no, just saying that I was looking for an adjustment and I didn't see it. I think that the Spence team just didn't have a game plan at all. They didn't have a backup plan. They didn't work through these progressions and the adjustments of the fight. It just didn't come to fruition at all.
Yeah, well, I think we talked about this too. Bud Crawford did what he always does. I mean, I think I told you guys, like, have you ever seen Bud fight any differently than that?
No,
No, because that's Bud's fight. So,
yeah,
and we have never seen Errol fight any differently because of they're talented, and what they've been able to do with the opponents they were given. They were going to do what made them successful. I think I said that. I said, "Look, Bud's going to be Bud. He's going to do what he always does,
yeah,
and Errol's going to do what Errol always does." Now, that's where we came to the same conversation about the teams. and I had said too, Errol's team's a little emotional, and you know, there that could cause some problems, and it ultimately did because you know, like I was telling you guys, if we get to a midway part in this fight, or if it looks like the fight is going in one way very badly, then that's where we're going to see the quality of these two teams. You know, because there's always been questions about Crawford's team. Are they get enough credit or whatnot, and then on the same token, Derek James has worked with some phenomenal champions. You know what I mean? With Charlo and obviously his work with Errol, but like I said, these guys have always done what they've done, and they've been successful at it. If Errol's ever been in trouble, he's been able to go right and just push the gas pedal a little harder and bowl through the problem. So I think Bud Crawford just separated himself a step from everybody, from as far as like the elite status. And when you're with a guy like that, now you can't figure it out. Then it's up to your corner to have that extra thing for you because Errol needed answers, and maybe they were a little emotional. And I don't know. I'm not in Derek's shoes, but um, I just like I said before, I'm a lot more familiar with Terrence Crawford than I am with Errol's camp from standpoint. So Bud was going to do. You got to make Bud. The only way to beat Bud Crawford is to make him not be able to do what he does the best. And Errol wasn't able to make the adjustments, whether it was the team or whatnot. At the end of the day, you just got to give your credit to Terrence Crawford because, like you said, everybody's got a plan until they get hit in the mouth.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think one of the hardest things that a trainer has to go through in their career, if they have to face this, is being able to assess their fighter's condition at a certain point in the fight if they're losing the fight damage. It didn't seem like in the seventh and eighth round, Spence was getting a severe amount of damage. His face had severe swelling. And the referee did what the corner couldn't do. As a trainer, when you're faced with that in a big fight, what would you have done? Would you have let your fighter just keep going out there like that? I mean, after the fact that, I mean, at that point, there was no way he was going to win that fight. And it was only a matter of time. Everybody saw that. And his corner had to see.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be realistic. At some point, you got to be realistic. After the first round, there was no doubt that Errol had been, Errol was being dominated and beat up. And I mean, it got to the point where, Terrence Crawford, I don't know what he was thinking, but Terrence Crawford is a mean dude. And, I believe that Terrence could have stopped it at any time after the sixth round. And he wanted Derek James to stop it because they have that thing. And, Derek had said a lot of disparaging things about Bomac and them team. And after the job was already done for Bud, after, the knockdown in the second, and, Errol had a moment here or there where he hit him with a clean shot and it did nothing.
Yeah.
Bud, was done with that part. He had already beaten Errol. Now Bud wanted to beat I believe Bud wanted to beat Derek James by making Derek pull the plug. And hey, look, after that seventh round, or I mean I believe it was the eighth or that. I mean, yeah, you gotta suck it up because it's not about you.
Yeah.
You got a guy in there that's a father, that's a son, and it's not you. And regardless of what's been said between yourself and the other person's team, it's not you. You know what I mean? And look, the guy had no chance. I mean, you always have a puncher's chance, but when you've already seen the guy hit the guy with the best shots, and Errol's a fucking warrior. There's no quit in that kid.
Yeah.
And sometimes you got to save somebody from themselves. Your guy's been through a bad car accident. A few years removed from that inactivity. Again, I go back to inactivity of Errol. You cannot go into a fight with Terrence Bud Crawford with anything less than 110% health to start. That's just to start. And to beat him is, but like I said, is Terrence Crawford beatable? Of course he is. He's human. But it's gotta be someone special, and there is a way, but what they had figured out was not going to work. And so if it didn't work that night, yeah, you're right. You go back, you take your losses. he could have done without another round of beating like that. You know what I mean? So if you already know that and you already have that mentality of, hey, you know what, we'll take our licks and come back later, then what does it matter if he goes out where you say that's enough to where he goes out, face first, and then he's really, damaged goods.
Yeah.
So yeah, you got to just put your own thoughts aside when it comes to the fighter, and it's not you. And you got to realize that stuff, So yeah, that was disappointing to see. But again, it's I don't know what's going on in their heads or what was going on in the corner. But yeah, from the outside in, I probably would have stopped it the round before.
Yeah, I think he took a significant amount of damage in that ninth round. That if I was the Nevada Commission, I would seriously take a look at suspending him a little longer than the mandatory 6 months, just to let him heal. Because obviously he, after the fight, now maybe he wasn't thinking clearly, but he said he wanted the rematch at 154, and I just, after that fight, I don't see a reason for a rematch. I think you're going to get this. You may get a little better out of him, but he just doesn't have the skill set to take on a Terrence Crawford again.
Well, and a couple of things you're gonna have to look at. If they move to 154, will it be easier for him to make the 08? Yeah, I'm sure it will. Will it make a difference? No, but it's in the contract. And personally, um, from the outside in, this 2-fight deal was, to me, Errol's swan song. You know what I mean? He's making the most money he ever made in his life. Like he's been fighting since he's a kid. He's Olympian, very accomplished. And he was able to put together a 2-fight deal. I think for sure he's going to exercise the clause, because I think he's, it's to him, it's his, it's his walkout. You know what I mean? And so if he does take the rematch clause, I won't be surprised, because they're making a lot of money, and there'll be question now. They got the storyline. Because I don't think Bud Crawford stands anything to gain by staying at 147 anymore. You know what I mean? There's some talented guys out there, but those guys fight each other. Bud's proved it all. And at 154, it ain't going to be any different. And Bud will entertain it, because he'll be making the most money he'll make. And so if he invokes the rematch, just look to this to be Errol Spence's last fight.
Yeah, 100%. He's definitely at the end of his career. I know we've been talking a lot about Spence and what they didn't do proper, but let's talk about what Crawford did. It was one of the little nuances that I was seeing throughout the fight. Even though, like, the headshots, those are the ones that were getting the most attention. Did you notice that
The body.
no matter what, he kept on going to the body, and he was torturing Spence. He was getting the headshots because they were there, but he just kept on going to the body. He knew, anyone who knows anything about boxing knew that it was only a matter of time before Spence was completely out of there, because he continued to work the body. And no one's really touched on that, but I just noticed that he just kept on going to the body.
Well, because you didn't notice it, because Spence was literally delivering himself into the meat grinder.
Yeah.
And that's what Bud does. I think I said it on the podcast we did at the weigh-in. I said, Bud Crawford will get you to come to him. He will get you to reach for him, and he will pick you apart to the body. And then, another buddy of mine mentioned the body shots. He was hitting him to the solar plex with these little nuanced shots that people don't really see, because he's going backwards most of the time.
Yeah.
And he really made it a really easy fight for Bud, because
he doesn't look like he didn't pick up the pace at all. He just did what he did.
Well, he was in shock, and again, we're not going to go back to what Errol didn't do. It was because he was in there with Bud Crawford.
Yeah, 100%.
And so we got to give him and his team all the fucking praise in the world, And this guy has separated himself from the whole division, and most of boxing too.
What do you
He's
think?
right up there, and
Yeah. Well, that's, I was leading to that. Where do you think he stands now after that performance, and just looking at his body work and just his skill set? Where do you think he stands in boxing history? Because I feel like this performance, finally, after 5 years of waiting for this fight and wanting this fight, he got it, and then now the world can see how special he is.
Well, I think he's our era's Floyd Mayweather. Our era's Sugar Ray Leonard, even, I say Mayweather, and it's actually a little more exciting than Mayweather, because if you look at their careers, Mayweather was doing what Crawford was doing at the lower weights until his hands got beat up and he went into a defensive mode. But we're seeing the opposite now, where we got Terrence Crawford coming up and getting stronger, and now you really gotta consider him one of the top punchers in boxing right now. I mean, he's 10-0 with 10 knockouts, in welterweight.
Yeah,
So it's exciting because now we're like, well, he can go to 154. Now he served that interest. Now he's not a small guy anymore. So I think Terrence Crawford's in the driver's seat.
finally.
He's right up there, and yeah, finally, and I think he could end up topping off at 160 pounds, and that's when we'll finally see somebody be able to he'll look ordinary then, maybe. I don't know. But
Yeah,
he can
the
do
only
whatever he
thing.
wants. To me, he's
Go ahead. Go ahead.
don't forget Sugar Ray and Duran went to 160, and Bud thinks like that. But he ain't gonna go to 68. But Bud, he's a history guy. And he knows what those guys did. You know what I'm saying? And now there's just more cherries to put on top of his career now. And I mean, look, he has. They were talking about, look at all these miles on Crawford, miles. The guy's never been in a fight where he's taken a beating. I mean, if you need
Ever.
miles, he's got more miles. He's got more miles from running the incline. He's had harder fights doing the incline in Colorado Springs than he has in most of his fights, and that's because he's that good.
Yeah.
So to me, he's not got hand problems. The guys in the back, he wraps his hands like a fucking samurai, man. Bud Crawford is far from shop worn. You know what I
Oh
mean? He
yeah.
may be a little training camp worn because your body takes more beating in the training camp, but man, he barely got touched on Saturday night. And so,
Yeah. He
to
made
me,
a
number one,
ridiculous.
pound for pound, and you know, nobody's been able to get to him until they got the right plan.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And the only thing that's really working against him is father time. I mean, at 35, like literally he walked into the 147-pound division at 30 years old and dominated everything and was just waiting for that PBC door to open up. And finally, obviously, did a couple years ago, and then finally he got the fight that he wanted. So I just hope there's enough time so that we can see him, take his victory lap essentially and dominate 54 and then possibly go up to 60 to finish out his career.
Well, look at this, and Bud's no dummy, because remember, Charlo's going up to fight Canelo, but he doesn't have to vacate all his belts.
I believe the WBO is the only one that has the rule, and who knows, these guys, they change their rules all the time. But the
Now look at this.
WBO,
Bud will sit back. I think Errol is going to probably exercise rematch. If he doesn't, after September, whatever happens with Charlo and Canelo, he may just go right after Charlo and go after another undisputed right away.
I think
You know what I
I think
mean?
what's going to
And
happen
so,
is I think what's going to happen is the WBO belt is going to open up because Charlo goes up, right? Because he's not allowed to hold it. That Spence and Crawford will fight for that belt at 54. Crawford will obviously get it, and then he'll go for the other three belts. If Charlo coming back down from that weight back down to 154 is not going to be easy. I think it's he may just stay at 160 to avoid it, because I did you see Crawford? Did you see the video of Crawford during the fight? Look at Charlo and say,
yeah, talking to him.
that's
Yep.
crazy. That shows how good
Bud
he.
Crawford is a gamer, man. The guy
Oh,
does
yeah.
not turn it off,
Uh-uh.
And I don't think he'll go to 68, but I could see Bud Crawford finishing his career at 160 pounds, man.
Oh,
I
100%.
mean, why not? He's got skills, man, and it's great. It's great for boxing, So here we
Yeah,
go on to the next one.
my hope for him is that the boxing world with this fight and all the people that have just hated on him because of the PBC hype machine for the past 5 years finally give him his respect, because a performance like this, you can't, unless you're just completely blind, you can't deny what just happened
Yeah,
and
he
how
definitely
good.
separated himself from the pack.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Good shit.
Well, I appreciate the
He
time,
really
man. Is there anything
Yeah,
else
no
you
worries,
noticed
man.
about it
Well, again, like
as a
I said,
trainer?
well, yeah, you see a lot of stuff at that level, like I was telling you guys before, we were gonna see really how good each camp was based on where the fight was at
Yeah,
that point, at a midway point, because that's where the adjustments come and whatnot. So I think we may have learned a couple things, you know what I mean, about each guy's camp. And
yeah,
that's pretty much it. I'll just leave that at that. And we learned that Bud Crawford is yet to be figured out, and yet to be really challenged. So he's the number one pound for pound guy, and kudos, man. It was a great fight to watch. And you see somebody dissect somebody like that who's such another great champion in Errol Spence. Um, it's interesting to see what's going to happen in the future. But
yeah. I'm
all in all,
curious. Oh, go
I
ahead.
was happy with it.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I'm
But
curious.
yeah, I appreciate you, man. Anytime.
Oh
I
no,
think it's going to be.
I totally appreciate. Likewise, I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate your time. I know it's valuable. You're a busy man. So
Yeah, no worries, brother. Well,
yeah,
let's catch up
hopefully.
soon. See what happens next.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully, I have a feeling they're not going to be. Spence isn't going to be ready for November, and maybe the 6 month suspension minimum. I don't know. I could see them. Thurman called him out. I could, see him fight one more at 47 just to go, just the Thurman.
Let Thurman. That ship sailed. I'd say let Thurman fight Boots Ennis and those guys, and Terrence. That's not a marketable fight. Terrence is like, there's no one out there believes that Keith Thurman going to beat Terrence Crawford. You know what I'm
No,
saying?
that's true. That's true. He's got to fight
You
his way
know,
back
so
up.
mhm. I
Yeah.
think if we see Errol exercise the rematch clause, because this is the end of the road and he's secure. But it'll just be the same. You know,
Yeah, there's nothing going to
I don't
change.
see it changing.
Yeah,
He's got his number.
you know how it goes. The fighters always want more the second fight, and the promoters always make less. So
Well,
it's gonna.
we haven't seen those numbers on that contract, but after taking a beating like that and still saying let's run it back, there's got to be some big numbers on that contract for that rematch. So
Oh yeah,
you can't blame the guy.
Heyman's not happy about trying to sell that fight because it's gonna cost him a lot of money. So,
Right on, brother. Well,
all
let's catch
right,
up soon.
100%. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, brother. Be
All
well.
right, take it easy. All right, bye.
Thanks, Armando.